Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. Today, Psalm 106, verses 16 through 20. And we saw yesterday how 14 always follows 13. That is, when you soon forget the works of God and you don't wait for His counsel, lust comes. Because the nature is there. And unless we restrain it with the Word of God and believing the Word of God and remaining faithful to the Word of God, then we're going to step out in our own strength. And that's exactly what these people did. And, of course, they had no way to provide for themselves, so they cry out to Moses and complain to him. They say, well, why have you brought us out here to kill us with hunger? And then the Lord gave them their requests, bread and quail. But He sent leanness into their soul because they had, stepped away from the thing that's the most important. Always remember what Jesus said about this. Man does not live by bread alone. He quoting the Old Testament there, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So our leanness of soul happens when we step away from the Word of God, and we depend on our own ability and our own cleverness. We think we're so smart, our pride, our arrogance. We think we're so, in control, and we've got it all figured out, and nobody else knows but us. Ladies and gentlemen, really, we need to come to the place where we just dispense with our own self-importance and rely continually upon the Lord. Well, let me read verses 16 through 20. They envied Moses also in the camp, and Aaron the saint of the Lord. The earth opened and swallowed up Dathan, and covered the company of Abiram. And a fire was kindled in their company, and the flame burned up the wicked. They made a calf in Horeb, and worshipped the molten image. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eateth grass. Okay, that's 16 through 20. We've got some pretty bad stuff that's recorded here for us. And, of course, remember, this psalm is a psalm of penitence. It's to show us our nature. We begin in 6 with, we have sinned. This is not just about the children of Israel. This is us, too. This shows us our nature. They envied Moses. Do you know anybody who envies someone else? Or maybe you have yourself? You see, where does that come from? That comes from, just like the lusting comes from, turning away from His Word, forgetting His works, and not waiting for His counsel. They envied Moses, and how is that manifested in the story? Numbers chapter 16 tells us that a fellow by the name of Dathan and a fellow by the name of Abiram, they stirred up the people and drew away a bunch of folks. And it says there, the earth opened and swallowed Dathan and covered the company of Abiram, all those people that stood against Moses and said, we know as much as you do, Moses. No, that wasn't the case, because God had anointed Moses to be their leader. Swallowed them up. A fire was kindled in their company, and a flame burned up the wicked. So God cleanses the camp of those rebels and destroys them. That was a horrible time in the record of the children of Israel in their time in the wilderness, that rebellion of Korah and Dathan and Abiram. Okay, verse 19, we come to a second horrible incident. The calf they made in Horeb. Moses is on the mountain. God says, you better go down because the people have sinned. They worship the molten image, which is exactly what the Lord told them not to do. They're not to make an image. But the people influenced Aaron so that he made them a calf to go before them. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eateth grass. So they took what God had revealed to them, and they made a calf out of it instead of worshiping the living and true God. If you want to see what the New Testament does with that particular verse, verse 20, they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox, go to Romans chapter 1. And look at verse 23, because this is the beginning of the reprobate mind. When you take the image and the glory of God, or rather the glory of God, and turn it into an image of something created, then, ladies and gentlemen, that's the beginning of the reprobate mind. And Paul tells us all about that there in Romans chapter 1. Okay, I hope you'll join me again tomorrow as we conclude the first half of Psalm 106 with verses 21 through 24 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.